Hey, HCDA, and today we're playing some more Mindustry. Last time around, I took down the nuclear production complex, and I figured, well, considering this is going to be attacked from 4 different zones, maybe we should clear some of those out. Then I checked the difficulty on these zones. So it varies from extreme to eradication to eradication to extreme. And I don't see any reasons to go to these particular zones, considering defending this zone is probably going to be easier than taking down these. So I am just going to skip right on to the next level. Instead, I'm going to go for the level called South Flats, and the reason for that is because I just saw that in the technology tree there's a thing called a water extractor, which sounds like a drill for water, which would be very convenient because we use that pretty much everywhere. And I have a feeling it's going to be over here, because this is where all the drills are, and this thing says capture salt flat. So, you know, it might make sense that in a salty, flat area, you might not have water from natural sources, so that might give me the drill. I don't know. I might be thinking too much about this. There's also, by the way, the air blast drill that we have available, which is an upgraded version of the drill we already have. Aside from that, I also just saw in the technology tree that we have a new type of reactor, which is the impact reactor, which is going to produce a massive amount of power from a single building. However, it does need some power to get this thing going initially. So this is not the first thing you build, most likely. But maybe it is actually, although we do need blast compound and cryo fluid to get this going. This is pretty advanced, at least the blast compound is. But all in all, it seems very doable, while at the same time producing a massive amount of power. So maybe the idea is to get ourselves kickstarted with the RNG generators, then build some thorium reactors to get the base power going, and then transition into the impact reactors. That's what I'm thinking right now, either way. It does feel like we're getting to the end of the technology tree, which makes sense considering how many levels we've already played. The main thing that I still want to complete is the exponential reconstructor for the tier 4 units, but it's just a massive amount of phase fabric, and I don't have the patience to sit around waiting for that. Now, I did actually, I'm not sure why we're on pause, I did upgrade the nuclear zone a little bit with some additional phase reactors, some additional sand to make sure this is producing stuff. So we will have a decent amount, I guess, of phase fabric flowing into this zone from now on, but all in all, it is still going to take quite a while to get the 20,000 or 24,000, I think we need to complete that. Okay, so in the meanwhile, just as I was about to start up that level, I got notified that I was about to lose one of the different zones that we did a couple of levels ago, and I'm going to be attacked in massive numbers in this zone. And honestly, the problem with eradication difficulty is that I'm getting attacked so hard here that I am just not producing enough ammunition to keep up with the offense level. I mean, don't get me wrong, if I have the ammunition, I have no problem holding against this whatsoever, but there's just so much ammunition needed that it's a problem. And then I thought, well, maybe I can just build some meltdown. So I started building a couple of these blast mixers. I have some impact reactors for a massive amount of power, so all of that is going exactly according to plan. And then I realized, well, actually I need a fair amount of surge alloy to actually make these things work, but I'm not actually producing that much in this level. And remember, this is one of those spaghetti levels that doesn't really have that many resources. I also have a bit of trouble with fire over here, but other than that, I'm actually wondering if it's just not more efficient to let this level go and recapture it with all the new toys available and get it right from the first time, because we have all kinds of new machines, we have new tiers of units, we have more advanced materials, and I can just bring those in from the other levels, but I can't really produce a lot of these things over here. For example, I have no thorium in this level by itself, so I only have the 1000 I have left over from what I brought. Anyway, I'm just gonna see if I can hold out here, but if I lose this level, I'm actually just gonna let it go. Okay, well, it turns out that with a couple of these meltdowns that I was able to scrounge together with a little bit of surge alloy production, we are now able to actually, you know, keep this level intact. Now, I've had to build quite a bit of air defense because there's a lot of tier 3 flying units sneaking past down the side over here. But as you can see, my base is still here. It is still going strong, and that means that for now we are out of trouble. Okay, all of that said, let's do what we actually came here to do, and that is try and capture some salt fields. I think it was fields, right, that they were called. Well, we have the first wave incoming in less than 2 minutes, so that's fun. Let's... Whoa, okay, and we have a completely open area, actually, which could be fun in terms of actually building a base. not so fun actually, in terms of actually defending against all of this. Now, I do have to admit, this doesn't look too impressive. It's just a couple of scatters. Some very low level towers actually. Is there anything more high level in the back? Oh, there's a couple of lancers, but that's it. Huh. This is actually very interesting. So, are these guys actually producing any units themselves? Doesn't look like it. I don't see any production buildings other than just the towers. Huh. Okay, well, let me think about this for a moment. Okay, so there's no water on this level whatsoever, so that rules out pretty much all of the power production I have available, with the exception of things like solar panels, which the game has been kind enough to supply me with. The game also supplied me with a lot of like basic towers, which are honestly really basic. I'm not sure if that's going to be sufficient to hold off the enemy, but I was thinking we can actually make pyrite. We have plenty of sand and coal and lead, so pyrite is not going to be a problem. So maybe I just use my ripples to slowly advance towards the enemy and do it that way, and in the meanwhile I might be able to leverage some of the other resources that I brought with me to produce some tier 3 units and take down the remaining enemies through that. And I was specifically thinking about making some of those fortress units that have a very long range, which are basically just mobile ripples. And so I think some of you in the comments actually pointed out to me as well. And the defenses here are really pathetic. So if I can just outrange these, I am just going to walk all over that, very easily clear the level. But in the meanwhile, of course, I do need to make sure I don't get overrun. So what I've done is I set up some solar panels, because that just produces power and I don't need water for that. And on top of that, I use some of the lower tech actually to set up some silicon production, as well as some graphite production and a lot of the other base stuff. So at least now we have pretty much everything in terms of base materials coming in, with the exception of, what am I missing actually? I am missing some metaglass. And if I have that going, I think I should be able, let me just double check, should be able to produce some tier 3 units. Now this is going to be pretty resource intensive, and honestly I'm not producing much at all, but hopefully that is going to be enough. Now we do have a wave incoming in exactly now, just 2 units. That is hopefully going to be manageable. I need to figure out where they are actually coming from though. Okay, so it seems they spawn actually right on top of the enemy core, and that means that if I am... Oh, that's not a smart idea. If I'm not mistaken, they should be basically running towards my base in a pretty much straight line. So here's the plan. I'm just gonna put up a couple of lancers, and that should hopefully be enough to keep the enemy at bay while I start working on my next production. And there we go, I have some metaglass production up and running, and I just noticed that we're waiting on wave number 3, but the enemies haven't actually attacked me whatsoever. And that is because I had the RTS attack wave still enabled in the settings. I definitely don't want to get into another one of those situations where there's hundreds of units just clumped up, making the level nearly impossible, although on this map I think it would be a lot easier to handle that. So I just disabled that, and I'm actually wondering if that will cause the enemy to move straight in. It looks like it. Also, apparently we have a flying unit coming in, so that was a little bit unfortunate. Didn't even know there was one of those. Are the ground units also? Yep, they are also moving in now, so that is fine actually. Okay, so I guess it's decision time. I can either try to attack this base with turrets, which honestly I think is a viable tactic, but I think I am going to go for some tier 3 units with the fortresses in mind specifically, mainly because I think, well, I can either do it with turrets and risk running out of ammo. I mean, obviously you can produce more ammo, but just, you know, units have infinite ammo, so it makes sense, assuming I can get enough firepower going. But I can also just support my units, protect my units, I should say, with some, for example, some lancers, and I think that should be enough given how many defenses we have on the map. Now I am going to use my pretty little blueprint over here again to make my life easy. This is actually designed for crawlers, but just by replacing the coal with lead, I should be able to produce the fortresses instead. Okay, so the first of these fortresses are now moving out. I have a couple of random defense batteries to set up, and I'm going to do pretty much exactly that. I am going to move these up slightly, just making sure I connect everything up, and then move my fortresses along with that. And of course making sure I move up the spawning point as well while I'm at it. just moving up my front line basically. And as you can see, these fortresses have a massive range. Now, can they shoot past walls is the question. Yeah, it looks like it. So I can just slowly start whittling away at the enemy defense line while the other units are spawning. Now the waves are of course increasing in strength, but then again so is my army. So I mean that is going to be pretty much smooth sailing until the end of this level, I think. Like taking candy from a baby, I just sitting outside of the range of the enemy defenses, whittling away at them. And of course we are getting waves incoming that are trying to attack us, but these are very low level units. And again, it feels like this is one of those levels I should have done earlier, or well, could have done earlier, as in then it would have been challenging. But with these level 3 units, almost feels like I'm using cheat codes, even though I am playing at max difficulty. So, you know, it has that going for it. And yeah, I could pretty much just walk up to the middle of the base and start blowing away and capture the sector. Now that means that I think I should now have, if I look at the technology tree, yep, I have the water extractor available. That would have been extremely nice to have earlier on. It does cost quite a bit of power. It doesn't necessarily generate a lot of water, but you can put it wherever you want, which is especially nice, for example, for boosting towers at your front line if there doesn't have to be anything close by. Now the oil extractor is something I wasn't actually expecting. So what does this do? It uses a large amount of power, sand and water to drill for oil. So okay, so we put sand in, water in, and out comes oil. It is a fair amount of oil, to be honest. It is also a fair amount of power, but this would actually let me literally make coal wherever I want on the map. Because, well, assuming I have sand there, I guess, because so long as I have sand there, then water is now no longer an issue. I can make that with the water extractors, and then we can get some coal going. Well, that was really nice. A very easy level, honestly. But anyway, it was nice to get that up and running, and that does mean I have now a huge zone available actually to work with. The only problem is I don't really have a lot of the advanced resources on this map. So from what I understand, apparently at some point we'll be getting an option to transport things to other maps. If that is the case, then I am thinking that this map might be the best place to gather all the materials, if needed, process them to whatever else we need them to be processed into, like advanced resources and things like that, and then export them wherever we need them to go. Like have everything converge on this map and then export it to the target map we're trying to conquer. That is what I'm thinking. The real question is, I think I have like 5 levels left and I still haven't unlocked that actual ability, but I guess we will find out sooner rather than later. Okay, so considering that level was really quick, let's do another one. And I actually want to see if I can figure out, based on the technology tree, where I am going to get that thing that is going to allow me to transport units. I have something unlocked over here that requires Impact 0078. Given where this is in the technology tree, this is probably going to be something that repairs my units. I've unlocked pretty much everything else. I would expect that. Oh, hold on. In the corner, sneaky. Capture extraction outpost. It is in the conveyor belt section, although I would expect something that launches things between like sectors to be above the mass driver. But this is one of the few things I can still unlock, so I guess we go for the extraction outpost. I'm actually going to launch from the nuclear outpost because I have blastinium, that's not a thing, blast compound, and a lot of other stuff over here, as you can see, even a lot of phase fabric and surge alloy. So, you know, this is going to give me a head start, hopefully, to make sure this goes as smooth as possible. I do have to note that in the meanwhile I had to defend one of the other old zones, but that wasn't really interesting to show, so I am just skipping right past that. Interesting pop-up, by the way, that shows you what resources you have on this map. Okay, so this is a complicated layout actually, because we don't really know if the enemy is gonna come through here or through here, and flying units might do either, so you know this is actually going to be pretty interesting to defend. Now let's see what we're dealing with over here. Well, honestly not much. The defenses seem, again, pretty pitiful compared to what we've been dealing with in other levels. Honestly, there's This might be a very quick level once again, which would suit the length of this episode, but yeah, there's just not much going on. This is just a couple of duos, I think, yeah. A couple of scatters. This has even less defense than the previous level. We could use some naval levels to actually go all the way through here, all the way through here, and then attack the base from the back and then clear everything out. So naval units, I feel, on average, are actually pretty strong. So if we just build them over here, or maybe over here, then yeah, I think we should be fine. So let me think here. The level 3 naval unit, or at least the offensive one, has a capability to attack both air and ground, and it has a massive range of 33. So if we compare that to the fortress, that's only 29. Well, only 29, that's already massive. But this one has an even longer range. So we can do the exact same thing as we did in the previous level if we just start producing brides from the get-go. I'm actually wondering, can I just skip over any sort of like silicon and graphite production and so on, and just start producing units and clear the level? I'm tempted to try. It is a little bit of a risky approach, maybe, because if I run out of resources, I mean, it's game over. That's it. So, yeah, that might not necessarily be the smartest thing to do. We could actually set up some power production very easily over here with some cryogen generators. We have titanium, we have water, and yeah, let's just play it safe. But I could actually see that being a very smooth and easy way to complete a level, but better safe than sorry. With some inspiration from the last level, I actually want to try out starting with some really basic type of excavators, drills, mostly because they don't cost power. Start producing some pyrite that way, get that into a production facility so I have a pretty decent amount of production, then upgrade that production to blast compound, and then use that to get a, what was it, an impact reactor? Yes, an impact reactor going, and then I have all the power I need. It'll take a minute, but by boosting that up from the get-go and by saving some power in these large batteries fueled by the solar panels, I should be able to do all of that, I think. It's just gonna be a little bit of an experiment, but that's the fun about playing these games. Honestly, this low-tech production is working even better than I thought. You can see we have a pretty decent amount of pyrite coming in, even though, well, all of this is extremely basic. I am still running a power surplus now thanks to the differential generator, so now it's time to scale up. And as the first wave is coming in, I have my impact reactor powering up. It takes a minute to get going, but for the moment we are still at the surplus of power, so even the storage wasn't needed. And once this is up and running as it is now, well, as you can see, we have all the power we're going to need for a very long time, which begs the question, where's the enemy going? Apparently they can't really decide themselves either. They're going to go in all kinds of different directions. Anyway, since the enemy is apparently coming from this side, I'll just defend with a couple of lancers and then I can start working on my base. Weird as it may seem, the first thing I'm actually going to do is double up on my power production. Remember, I can put as many lancers as I want on the map like this. I can use the blast compound and the pyrite to defend myself if I need to, and just making sure I have enough power makes everything else in this game a lot easier. I mostly like using all that power to, well, upgrade my facilities to the max from the get-go. So you can see all these air blast drills are drilling a massive amount of base resources up already. I am already producing a full belt of silicon and a half belt, a little less than a half belt of graphite. And that is going to go a long way to make sure I don't run out of stuff while I'm starting to make units. Add in a couple of these air blast drills to put a lot more stuff in my mass drivers. Honestly, it's even more than a titanium conveyor can handle. I'm using all these mass drivers to shoot a single point of contact just to keep things a little bit less spaghettified than they otherwise would be. Hold on. I just noticed there was some pyrite mixing into my blast compound belt over here. Well, that would have been a disaster for my power output, but there you go, it's back up and running. I just saw it in time, and I added a couple of cyclones because I had some air units flying through to the north. Now, some air defense over here as well. I think we're pretty much ready to go and build some units. Okay, so once again I had to temporarily hop back to the nuclear launch facility to make sure that this thing doesn't die, although it seems to have no problems handling itself, but I still don't trust the auto survive function, even though it says it would survive the next 10 waves. Just babysitting it might just be safer. I do have to say it's kind of enjoyable to see all of this going on, but there we go, the sector has been recaptured, or captured, or I'm not sure how to call that, but I am just putting up a couple of walls to make sure I don't need to do this next time I get back, and yeah, then we can get back to the actual main level. I do like how much easier it is to make naval units, because you actually only need 4 different items to make pretty much everything, both the healing type of naval unit as well as the damage one. So yeah, that should be pretty straightforward. And while this production is ramping up, I might as well just expand my facility a little bit, maybe add in some defenses, probably some air defenses as well, because honestly, if anything is going to go wrong, it's going to be those pesky air units once again getting through. And you might ask, is putting down a lot of meltdowns in defense against tier 1 and 2 units not a little bit of overkill? And my answer would be yes, probably, but yeah, we have the technology. And yeah, it's working just fine. I've also put some defense over here, even though there hasn't been a single unit coming through here. But again, it's mostly because I'm worried about air units kind of flying through here like that. And on that note, I should probably add in a couple of these parallaxes, because those are pretty decent at intercepting those units and making sure that they don't fly straight through and demolish my base. Okay, so I got my new tier 3 units up and running, and let's take them for a spin, assuming they're actually able to leave my base. It's a little bit of finicky stuff going on there, but it seems to work. This is actually just the relics of my base that I could take myself. Let's just ignore the enemy, and let's do some of our own attacking. Apparently I got shot down, not sure by what, but that works. Let's just start barraging the enemy and taking out some turrets. I don't think now I disabled the RTS type of gameplay that the enemy is actually rebuilding anything. Not sure that works that way, but so far it seems to be working just fine. Oh, these are the launch pods. Ooh, they actually look really nice. I'm wondering where the units are that the enemy is sending away, but oh yeah, no, bad idea. Wait. Are these units going to attack me? Or are they just going to go for my base? If they are going for me, I probably can easily defeat this, honestly. But I might as well take advantage of my turrets, but it seems that they are ignoring me. In which case, I will just keep wallowing up on their turrets. Oh man, I sometimes really hate how belts work in this game, but yeah, this is obviously not going to work because I messed up my belts, but I need to clean this up. And I'm actually wondering, should I make some tier 3 units of the other type as well? I might as well, I mean, I have all the resources, so why not? Well, skillful Mindustry player that I am, I managed to actually, while I was building the secondary unit building facility, I managed to somehow mess up my power. My power shut down, of course, with the impact reactors. That's a massive problem. So I needed to set up a secondary power facility to make sure I had something to boost the main power facility to get everything back up and running. In the meanwhile, I ran out of silicon because, of course, that was no longer producing. Aside from the fact that this unit building is already consuming a massive amount of silicon as well. Long story short, really messy, not really entertaining to show though, but I am now sitting on a small army, and I should see that being reproduced pretty soon again as well. Okay, back to business of laying waste to my enemy's base, and honestly I might have just done that anyway if I was actually paying attention, because this is going to be extremely easy. I mean, it's not like the base is actually fighting back. There's a couple of turrets here and there that have a longer range, but all in all, the fires are going to take out most of the base that I can't just take out by myself. And honestly, there is not much that I cannot just take out by myself. Well, there's not anything, I think, as long as it's in the range of my very long-range bright. And I was wondering why my tier 3 healing units were not popping out, but it turns out I don't actually have access to those yet. I have all the tier 3 units, but for the naval version I need to capture the coastline. Well, I guess that makes sense, but I think we know what level we're doing next. Look at those sneaky bastards, by the way. They decided to go through the other side of my base now. I'm not entirely sure why that is actually. I mean, I actually have a pretty nice pathway very clear to them over here. But yeah, they decided to flank me. And that is very nasty of them, because I honestly wasn't counting on that happening, although I do have all the defenses I need in order to stop that. But still, it's interesting to see that for whatever reason they changed their minds. But yeah, probably just rushing this level is way more efficient, because as you can see, like I expected, I can just walk in through the back door and delete the enemy's core over here. And that means I can also start deleting their entire base. So There we go, and now we should have access to, yes, the launch pad over here. It is going to launch batches of items to selected sectors, only accepts one item type at a time, so we're going to need quite a few of those if we want to be transporting massive amounts of different types of units to a single place. But all in all, I think this is going to be pretty fun. So let me take a few more minutes to set some basics up. Okay, so welcome back to the Salt Flats, and now I'm actually wondering if I can set up things over here, because I don't actually know what I need to build these. Hold on, let me actually figure out how this works. Okay, so it's actually pretty straightforward. We have a launch pad and we have a landing pad. So one is going to send items, and the other one is going to receive items, and actually, I was inclined to make like a giant factory over here that is going to in and output resources, but even though there's a lot of space in this particular level, there is a huge drawback, and that is that there's no water. So even though we can use the water extractor to compensate for that, that's just going to be extremely annoying. And I'm not entirely sure if that is actually worth it. Moreover, there is a lot of resources we don't actually have on this particular map. This is only going to be base resources, so everything more advanced would need to be imported to this map as well. And again, I am not entirely sure if that is going to be worth it. That said, I am going to play around with this a little bit, and again, I know guys, I could look all of this up, but that's kind of not the point of playing a game in my opinion, looking everything up and then just copy pasting. I want to have some fun myself as well. So by all means, let me know in the comments what you do, because by the time I read that, I will have already done some experimenting by myself, and others might find your comments very useful indeed. So, and honestly, I find it useful because it helps me kind of like figure it out for myself first, and then improve upon that based on what I read in your comments. So those are very much appreciated. I am going to play around, and you will find out what I've come up with in the next episode. If you're still here, you are awesome, and I do hope to catch you in the next one.